This is a mindfulness exercise to develop a skill to treat the experience of anger and resentment more effectively. Many people find that a major source of emotional distress is due to continuing to fall into reactive patterns of anger. It can seem that no matter how much you despise losing your temper, you find yourself in a pattern where you continue to blow up and lash out, no matter how strenuously you try to suppress the anger. Or you may find yourself in a near constant state of anger, dwelling on thoughts of past experiences of wrongdoing by others toward you or those you care about. You probably can see and understand the negative impact of harboring these resentments and how beneficial it would be for you to be able to let go of the past, but figuring out how to do that seems impossible. We can think of anger as a type of internal energy that primes your body to take action. In anger, the impulse is often to scream, curse, smash something, or say something meant to wound. Then there are people who very rarely act in any aggressive manner, mostly due to not feeling comfortable with direct confrontation. But this does not exclude them from running into difficulties with how they deal with anger. What usually happens is the anger converts into actions that can be described as passive-aggressive. Here are just a few examples of what this can look like. Silent treatment and withdrawal. Deliberately ignoring someone or giving one-word responses to punish them without a direct confrontation. Spiteful procrastination. Intentionally delaying tasks that are important to others, like chores or work assignments, to express resistance or exert control. Feigned forgetfulness. Forgetting obligations or appointments that the person didn't want to do, while conveniently remembering things that matter to them. Negative body language. Communicating displeasure through heavy sighing, door slamming, eye rolling, or pouting instead of using words. No matter how you find yourself reacting to anger, either passively or aggressively, or both, we often want to act differently, but still continue to fall into unhelpful behaviors. Several years ago, a famous professional boxer was being interviewed before a big fight, and the reporter mentioned the opponent having a plan for how to win, to which the boxer replied, "Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth." Most of us can reflect on times in the past when we had an outburst of anger and acted in ways that we deeply regretted and hope to never repeat. We can have a plan for how to avoid repeating these behaviors, but it's easy to make a plan when everything is calm. It's a very different story when we find ourselves in the middle of a situation where that powerful energy of anger rises up and pushes us to action. This is the punch in the mouth that the boxer describes, where all plans go right out of the window. So what follows is not a plan but a practice. The idea is not to control anger, because any attempt to control anger is really just bottling up and pushing down on the energy that we call anger. And doing this only reduces space to contain the energy, which increases pressure. The energy has to go somewhere, and when the pressure gets too high, this is where we get an explosion, and usually the most regrettable words and actions follow. What follows is a very different approach. It's actually the total opposite of the reduction of space from any attempt to control anger. The first practical step to moving toward a more effective strategy for greater skill in how to manage the experience of anger is to increase our ability to notice thoughts and emotions as they occur within your inner experience. The faster you are able to become aware and simply notice the experience of anger when it first shows up, the better you will be able to address it effectively. I cover this extensively in other exercises. Once you become aware of the experience of anger, ask yourself, If I allow this energy of anger, irritability, or frustration to convert into action, will I be acting like the person I want to be? Will it help move my relationship or my life in the direction I want? If the anger stems from past experiences that play and replay over and over again, you can ask yourself, is there any benefit or anything at all to gain by re-examining and reliving this hurtful experience? The word resentment comes from the Latin word sentire, which means to feel. The re prefix means again. Resentment means to feel again. There is a past experience where we were wronged in some way. Or it may be we saw a wrong done to others and it made us angry, which is understandable. And now, every time you think about this situation, you get burned up all over again. You hold the thought in your mind and re-feel the experience over and over and over again. Holding on to resentments is a way to relive and re-feel an unpleasant experience on repeat. In our imagination, we replay the experience. We may rewrite the script of how things went down and imagine we acted differently by saying or doing something aggressive toward the person or people that offended us. While dwelling on these thoughts, our minds may go to the future, thoughts of taking vengeance or relishing in the thought of harm coming to those people, even if not directly from you. The word for this is malice, which means willing for the bad for others. Ill will. Carrying this sense of maliciousness is not good for the human spirit. It is simply not possible to live a life that is happy, joyous, and free while harboring thoughts of ill will upon anyone else, no matter how justified the anger is. There is a saying that holding on to a resentment is like a person drinking a bottle of poison, believing that it will hurt their enemy. If you witness or suffer a harm, an insult, or an injustice, and become angry, and this anger impels you to stand up for yourself, or someone or something that is important to you, it may make sense to channel that energy and direct it to useful actions. But if the impulse is to write a nasty email, or say spiteful things, or raise your voice, or get into someone's personal space, and these behaviors are not in line with who you want to be, then it's sensible not to act. But what do we do when anger pushes us to explode and our values pull us toward kindness? We don't want to lock into a tug of war with the anger. Trying to suppress or bottle up the anger only increases the internal pressure until it spills over into unhelpful actions that we later regret. Instead, we will now begin to practice creating psychological space for the anger, which will cause the energy of the anger to dissipate instead of spill over. And then we can make a decision on what action to take, if any. The aim is not to become passive and never act when things bother us. It is to ensure our actions are effective and in line with our values. When we create space, we allow the anger to expend its energy and loosen its grip without us having to act on it. It can be helpful to think of anger like a wave in the ocean. A wave typically starts off very small, but then gradually gathers speed and grows bigger. It continues to grow and move forward until it reaches a peak, known as a crest. Then, once the wave has crested, it gradually subsides. The same happens with the feelings of anger in the body. They start off small and then steadily increase in size and strength. When we create space, we aren't trying to resist or control the feeling of anger. We just create enough space for the energy it contains to dissipate and subside. A monster of a wave can occur in the middle of the ocean, hundreds of miles of water in all directions, and it will reach a crest and then harmlessly subside. But that same wave would cause a massive amount of destruction if it ran out of space and hit land. Learning how to create psychological space is a simple but effective technique in which we treat our experiences of anger like ocean waves and create enough space for them until they dissipate and we are restored to a sense of calm. The first step is to just notice and observe anger as an inner experience. Focus your attention onto where it's located in your body and how you experience it within your body. See if you can avoid getting caught up in the mental description of anger or the event that is causing the anger to arise. That is engaging your thinking self. Here you want to be a pure observer, so the focus is on the direct experience, not the commentary. Next, we simply call out and acknowledge the feeling of anger. And you do this by literally saying to yourself, in this order, I'm getting angry. I'm noticing a thought that I am angry. I can notice myself having a thought that I am angry. You can then direct your attention onto the feeling of anger, not the situation or the thoughts about the situation that is causing the anger, but the actual sensation of the emotion that your mind has labeled anger. Then take a very long and deep breath, and as you do, try to imagine the breath expanding the area where you are experiencing the feeling of anger. This is not an attempt to alter, push away, or in any way control the feelings associated with the experience of anger, but rather we are now creating more space around it. The anger is experienced as a kind of energy, and when we run out of space to contain the energy, it becomes overwhelming and then spills out in behavior, which we usually later regret. This may require an ability to be able to break away from a situation like a heated conversation that involves another person. In this situation, you may need to ask for a few moments to gather yourself before continuing, and in that time practice what I am suggesting. Hopefully, you are interacting with a person or people who will respect this type of request. But with enough practice, you can become so skilled at noticing a strong emotion and then immediately creating enough psychological space to not be overwhelmed to the point of unhelpful behaviors. This can be done so quickly and efficiently that there is no need to break away from a situation in order to restore a sense of calm. We may have told ourselves that we just need to control the anger, and if we cannot, we are weak. But this cannot be the case, as there are many examples of very strong-willed people who yet still struggle with anger issues. So it's not a failure of strength, but rather a lack of psychological space. So no matter how intense the experience of anger gets, you do have the capacity to make adequate room for it. Remember, anger is a type of energy, and no matter how strong it is, if you are able to create enough space around it, the energy will dissipate and the feelings associated with anger will pass. Think of a monster tsunami-sized wave with enough kinetic energy to level a large city like a nuclear bomb. If this wave occurs in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, several hundred miles from land, what happens to it? After the initial surge, it harmlessly dissipates into the much larger ocean. So the next time you feel that surge of an anger welling up inside of you, don't resist it by trying to control it by pushing it down, because doing so only reduces space, which will always increase the strength of the anger, which builds in pressure and can lead to an eruption. Think of that same powerful wave of anger, but instead of hitting a wall, it rises up in the middle of a vast open ocean. What happens then? There is no destruction. The open ocean, your mindfulness, contains enough space to allow all that energy to surge up, max out, and fall away harmlessly. One definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. So the next time you notice anger showing up, try something different. Start by observing it, breathing into it, and creating space around it. The stronger the feeling of anger, the more space it needs. The ability to create psychological space is something we all can do, but it is a skill, and like all skills, it takes practice and experience to get better at it. So try to practice them throughout the day with milder frustrations, annoyances, resentments, and irritations. Again, the sequence goes like this. As soon as we notice anger arising within us, we simply call out and acknowledge the feeling of anger by saying to ourselves, I'm angry. I'm noticing a thought that I am angry. I can notice myself having a thought that I am angry. Then take a very long and very deep breath, and as you do, try to imagine the breath expanding the area where you are experiencing the anger. And then sit back, observe the feeling of anger with a sense of openness and curiosity, like it was an exhibit in a zoo and you were in the observation deck, safe and set apart from it, so it can't cause you harm. As you observe the experience, if the feeling of anger continues to appear to increase and intensify, take a few more long and deep breaths, continuing to visualize each breath entering into and expanding the space around where you are experiencing the anger. As you become better trained in this, you will find yourself better equipped to stay steady even when the water gets choppy. Over time, these surges of anger will emerge less frequently and carry less power over your life.